Before we begin, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It's free and you won't miss any future videos. Operation Market Garden is possibly the biggest what-if of the Second World War. In today's episode of Services on Celluloid, that famous operation is represented by 1946's Theirs is the Glory. Directed by Brian Desmond Hurst, who at the time of filming was known for directing wartime propaganda movies, such as The Lion Has Wings in 1939. Theirs is the Glory was also jointly produced by the J. Arthur Rank Organisation, with aid from the British Army Film and Photographic Unit.
In September 1944, to British airborne troops, Arnhem was just a name on a map, a town with a bridge 60 miles behind the enemy lines. On airfields in Britain, men were being briefed for their part in the greatest airborne operation in history.
The film is the story of Operation Market Garden, albeit from the perspective of the British paratroops involved. The goal of Market Garden was to drop a combined Allied airborne force deep within Nazi-occupied Holland to capture a set of bridges and wait for an armoured column to reinforce them, thus giving the Western Allies a route into Germany, then Berlin, thus ending the war early. It was a gamble, but in my opinion it was a gamble worth taking. However, in the years following the battle, it's remembered as a series of missed opportunities and ill circumstance, with the gargantuan efforts of the paratroopers involved forever being remembered for their brave but albeit futile defensive actions around those precious bridges. The film retells those events, with over 200 veterans being used as the cast, paid just £3 per day. Some men only recently having been released from prisoner of war camps before filming. You can tell this with the movement and actions of the soldiers on screen. They've done this before, and it comes back to them with ease. They are not actors, but professional paratroopers. Their memories still being raw at the time of filming, and for me the film is unique in this regard. It's very rare that you see a war film with the actual men you are seeing on screen being the same men that had fought the battle you were watching. Some films say based on true events. Theirs is the Glory is only true events. Theirs is the Glory's cast is made up of no famous Hollywood faces. It's a bold choice for a film like this, as having a big name attached may have made the film not as obscure as it is now. The faces of the men in the black and white film stock, it just adds something to the look and feel of every scene. It's like we're there with the paratroopers in their foxholes, holding a grenade, or aiming down the sights of a Sten gun. I think it's the splicing in of original footage from the actual campaign. It just adds more to its gritty authenticity. The war correspondent Stanley Maxted recreates his reporting from the grounds of the Harstein Hotel.
A moment ago, we heard the engines of heavy aircraft, and now flying low to drop their supplies, I can see over the tops of the trees Sterlings, Halifaxes, Dakotas, and now parachutes are blossoming out like bunches of chrysanthemums.
His sequences make Theirs is the Glory more documentary than film. While making this video, I discovered Historical Firearms on Twitter, who has just written a fantastic book all about the Piat. He also runs a YouTube channel called The Armourer's Bench. It's a treasure trove of weaponry from a bygone era of conflicts. I recommend you follow him. Whilst chatting on Twitter, he discovered that the first time a Piat was used in action in a war movie was in Theirs is the Glory, and we both agree that it's one of the best scenes in the entire film.
Can we have a shot at it with the Piat, sir? Okay, off you go.
That Shah B stood no chance against the mighty Piat.
The Piat anti-tank projector, British hard-hitting secret weapon which has been in use for about a year, is demonstrated for Army cameramen. Designed to penetrate and stop any German tank at over 100 yards, it fires a bomb with accurate and deadly effect.
Upon entering service in 1943, the Projectile Infantry Anti-Tank, or Piat as it was more commonly known, was a spring-loaded British anti-tank weapon. It was loved and hated by the troops that used it, being hard to reload and taking a team of 2 to properly operate it. It took a brave crew to get up close and personal to score a hit with the weapon. Take the scene in the film where Private Dixon takes out the Panther tank. He's within spitting distance when he takes the shot. As a side note, that Panther tank was a wreck left from the actual battle. It had yet to be removed from where it was originally knocked out. Also, the Tiger tank that appears in the film is one of the very few instances that a genuine Tiger has been featured on film. Theirs Is the Glory showcase of German armour is much better than that Bridge Too Far mock-up Panther. Ugh. The Piat was invaluable to the troops at Arnhem. It gave them some firepower against the myriad of armoured vehicles brought up against them by the Germans. In the book Arnhem Lift, the author wrote a first-hand account of the power and morale-boosting effect the Piat could bring to bear in the heat of battle. Lieutenant X came up to the attic and offered to fire the Piat gun. He had just a little more experience with it than I had, as he'd once fired a practice shot while I had been shown how to load it. He waited until we could see the tank clearly. It could not have been more than 100 yards from us. Then he fired the first round. It was the greatest joy I'd felt for a long time, when we heard and saw the terrific explosion that this little weapon had made, a relief which could hardly be described. The Piat would also be used by Major Robert Kane, who won the Victoria Cross during the fighting around Oosterbeek, as the defensive perimeter set up by the paratroopers was squeezed tight by the attacking Germans. On the 20th of September, a Tiger tank approached the area held by his company, and Major Kane went out alone to deal with it, armed with the Piat. Taking up position, he held his fire until the tank was only 20 yards away, and then he opened up. The tank immediately halted and turned its guns on him, shooting away a corner of the house near where the officer was lying. Although wounded by machine gun bullets and falling masonry, Major Kane continued firing until he had scored several direct hits, immobilised the tank, and supervised the bringing up of a 75mm howitzer, which completely destroyed it. Only then would he consent to have his wounds dressed. Towards the end of Theirs Is the Glory, the speech given by Richard Lonsdale in Oosterbeek Church is depicted. It's a piece of parachute regiment history that still gets the heart beating and makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up as Lonsdale rallies his troops for a last-ditch defence of Oosterbeek as they desperately hold on for the tanks of 30 Corps to push through to them. Just listen to this.
So far, we have had a good battle against good troops, troops that are not up to our standard. We have fought them in North Africa, in Sicily, and Italy, and at times against overwhelming odds. They were not good enough for us then, and they are not good enough for us now.
The actions by the men under Lonsdale gave the defence valuable time and helped the surviving troops get back across the river to British lines when the order to withdraw was finally given on the 25th of September. Lonsdale stayed behind until all the men under his command had made it safely back across the river. He swam it even though he had sustained severe wounds. A brave man indeed. Highlighting people like this is what makes Theirs Is the Glory a special film. A Bridge Too Far ends its film with the main stars talking about the perceived failures of the operation, of which in my mind was always a little ill-spirited as it uses hindsight to create a scene that for me always felt a little out of place. That post-war view that still hangs around, that the Brits were incompetent during the war, is something that I think A Bridge Too Far has helped to implement in popular culture. However, Theirs Is the Glory is the story of the men involved and not the men responsible. A Bridge Too Far gets bogged down in pointing the finger at certain historical figures in order to paint its own skewed narrative. Theirs Is the Glory does not do this. I'm not trying to pick on A Bridge Too Far, as that film does have its merits. I just think that Theirs Is the Glory presents its narrative in a smaller, less epic way than A Bridge Too Far, as it doesn't have the ability to use any post-war ill feeling, as the historical hindsight just isn't there at the time of filming in 1946. Theirs Is the Glory's ending uses the narrator who pops up from time to time, and is used to comment on the human effort made by the men who dropped into Arnhem.
And that's how they came from Elst toward Nijmegen. They had fought a good fight and kept the faith with you at home. They stood against the enemy's armor, and none had weakened. These knights of Arnhem had no armor. Their strength was in their own courage and in each other. By dying in that ravished Dutch town, they have saved countless thousands of other lives. They've written in letters of fire an immortal page of history.
The film ends by showing empty bunks from the barrack block that was shown full of troops before the battle. The ending is a stark reminder of the brutality of war and the human cost of fighting it. For me, Theirs Is the Glory is a forgotten gem. I've been critical of A Bridge Too Far in this video, and I don't hate it, but after watching Theirs Is the Glory a couple of times for this video, I just prefer its presentation of events. I implore you to seek it out and watch it when you have the time, as it's one of those movies that will stick with you. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for all of your ongoing support for my channel. It really means a lot to me to know you're enjoying these videos. Thank you again, and don't forget to like and subscribe.